Hello and welcome. Welcome to Pitch Perfect. Yes, our inaugural show about all things the World Game as FIFA's World Cup 2026 approach commencement. I'm Peter G. I don't know a lot about the World Game, but right beside me is Declan Kelly, and the World Game is his bread and butter. How are you, Declan?
Peter, to say I'm excited would be an understatement. Less than 26 days to go to World Cup 2026. 48 teams. I'm buzzing.
I've noticed. I've known you a while. I've seen you excited. I even knew you when Collingwood won a flag. But the World Game is your game. World Cup is really what you live for, from what I can gather.
Every 4 years it comes round. The Olympics are huge. The World Cup is huge. Long wait, long stint between drinks, but it's arrived. 3 countries, Canada, Mexico, United States, and the world will be buzzing. More teams than ever have qualified, which I think is a wonderful thing, and the world awaits the start of World Cup 2026.
So how did it all happen? What was it historically, your earliest memories of the World Cup? What got you into loving this game quite so much?
I arrived in Australia as a young buck with my parents, 1974. Colour TV was just arriving on the scene, as you remember.
Yep.
The rich kids had it, the rest of us didn't. And Australia had qualified for the World Cup. It was a big deal, but really these guys were pioneers. I have to say, 4 years later, 1978, I was living back in the UK. My father had got a job back there. We'd moved back for a short stint, and it took in 1978 Argentina, and that's when the flames started alighting for me on the world stage.
Yeah, I remember 1974. Funnily enough, I was still at high school, but and we all used to play Aussie rules football, even though we were all ethnics. But in Australia back in the 70s, you didn't really celebrate your ethnicity. In fact, even if your mother made you cutlet sandwiches, you would throw them in the bin so the skips didn't know you had them, and you'd ask if you could borrow one of their jam sandwiches or bologna sandwiches. Heresy. And the same went with the World Game. All of a sudden, Australia made it. They were in the World Cup, and so it made us all stand up and look at this. And there were, I think, every denomination known to man playing for Australia at the time. Their coach was Raleigh Rasic, who was obviously from Balkan somewhere there. And I do recall when we were studying soccer, as it was called, at Hammy Hill High School. Wogball at Hammy Hill High School. I remember a phys ed teacher, Brian Gray. How are you? And he was telling us there's this thing called a W defence, where you kind of shield and protect space. And there was Australia at the World Cup. They had an interesting defence. They just basically had everyone hanging from the crossbar. They had 11 blokes in a row, just hoping that no one would put one in. They were a very defensive team.
Very. And when I look back, and now hindsight's a wonderful thing, we can look historically, Peter. The Australian soccer team, we're known as the Socceroos then. That phrase was coined years later, and it stuck. They were part-time in the biggest, truest form. All had jobs, all took holidays to go to the Northern Hemisphere to represent their country. Would have got a tracksuit, would have got probably a pair of boots. Not being funny, the game was really in its infancy, but semi-professional with a capital S.
Absolutely. So now we fast forward to the year 2026. We've got this situation where it's 3 countries hosting the World Cup. I am convinced that when FIFA made the decision, Mexico, Canada and the USA were probably better friends. Life has changed a little bit politically since, but nevertheless, tournaments in 3 countries. How do you see it working?
It'll work very well. It's not the first time it's happened. Other countries have joined forces. Mexico have been involved with World Cups. This is the 3rd occasion. Canada the first. And the United States, Peter, hosted it in 1994, and they did a wonderful job. Economically, it makes sense. Getting the countries together. They're obviously landlocked, and they'll do a very good job. 16 cities will host the games, 11 in the United States of America, 3 in Mexico, and 2 in Canada. Makes lots of sense. East Coast, West Coast, a little bit of time difference, but the 3 countries coming together, the ingredients are there for what will be a sensational World Cup.
think you're right. Now, you said a little bit of time difference. Last time I grew up and had a look, I saw that California is 15 hours different from Perth, Western Australia, which is where we are and where we'll be watching from. That means New York will be about 11 hours time difference. Obviously, Canada and Mexico are on the same longitude. So we're talking very, very tough times to watch football. And I know you endure it all the time. You're a seasoned odd hour of the day professional in watching football. So you need to help me. How am I going to cope? You need to help our viewers and or listeners, if you happen to be listening to this on radio versus watching it on YouTube. Please tell me, how are we going to do it? Give us some strategies.
Plan preparation. Just for example, I took the liberty of looking up the 3 first games. We're in our group. Australia's in a group that includes Paraguay, United States of America, the host country, and probably the favourites for the group, Turkey. We take on Turkey at midnight our time in the group games. A little bit harder when we take on the host nation because it's a later game in the United States, 3 a.m. in the morning. So we've got some work to do there. And then we've got a very, very respectable Friday night game against Paraguay at 10 p.m. You couldn't plan it better if you tried. It's all about prep. People will make plans. Look, SBS is the host broadcaster, and they'll do a wonderful job. The Socceroos qualifying, Peter, apart from us all being proud, we all have made this country our home. You were born here. I wasn't, but I've spent the majority of my life here. Australia's qualified yet again. It's wonderful. It's about planning. We'll look at the group. How I'll do it is I'll look at the group games and the games I want to watch, and I will plan. Now, I'm lucky enough. We talk sport for a living, but Pitch Perfect is here to perhaps enlighten, educate, and just remind with a couple of advice. Go to bed. At midnight, I will probably stay up, watch the game, go to bed, and go the next morning. The 3 o'clock games, you make a great point. Champions League is on at the moment, and they are 3 a.m. kickoffs. Yep. I personally, and I think the only way I could function was I'll go to bed 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, set the old alarm for about 10 minutes to 3. I don't need to see the preamble. Get up, wash the face, sit down. I personally brew myself a cup of tea, just keeps me nice, and I will then go through. I'm refreshed. I will push through after the game and then have an early night the next night. I won't go back to bed. And I think with planning, and if you've got the benefit of, and I know a lot of our viewers will have to go to work in the morning, won't have that luxury, it's all about preparation. It's a world game, and the games are changed right around different time zones, lunchtime, afternoons, and evening kickoffs. Some will be tougher than the others. So it's all about just planning and preparing for the games we want to see.
Hearing you talk about it as rationally as that reminds me really of, well, and we do it regularly, got to take a flight to Melbourne. Well, the flight leaves at 6 a.m. It means you've got to be at the airport at 4-ish. You've got to have Uber come and get you at 3:45.
Correct.
So, and you land in Melbourne and you just keep working and go on and party, and then eventually you go to bed as normal as possible.
Correct.
And the next day you're a bit hazy, but you come good. Or back in the day when I was doing breakfast radio, mate, you got to get up early to do that.
You got to do it. And a lot of our viewers will be shift workers.
Yes.
And your analogy of traveling is excellent because your body clock's going to get a jolt. We're in Australia. We live in the most remote city, even though our viewers are right around this state and around this country, and we're obviously seeing viewers right around the world. You just make the right preparation. Get your body clock right, and then you'll get into it. And once every 4 years, Peter, small sacrifice.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we've got ourselves right now, thanks to your advice. And as I say, no one gets up early in the morning as often as Declan watching his beloved EPL or UEFA or you name it. He watches it. He knows all about it. We're now going to fast track through to June 2026. You've alluded to it. There are 48 teams. They're all strategically placed behind us over here. Even some... Yeah.
We're blocking.
But over time, I think this beautiful graphic might end up fading into, I don't know, what do you call it, a tree, where we get down to some few. So we got 48 teams. We got pools. To the uninitiated like me, what does that all mean?
12 groups of 4, 48.
Yep.
teams are seeded. The 3 host countries got automatic qualification, as they do right throughout the history of the World Cup, and rightly so. So when we started this journey, when the 3 countries were announced, geographically, regionally around the world, you go into your groups. 45 teams have qualified. 3 teams have qualified through hosting, be it Canada, United States, and Mexico. The rest went into their individual pools, and some of the teams only qualified less than a month ago with playoffs and alike, especially out of Europe. We're left with 48 teams, 12 groups of 4. The top 2 of each group will go through to the next phase, as will a host of the best third place finishes. So that's where goals will come into it and so forth. But a lot of people, Peter, and I'm interested in your thoughts too, it's too many. Poppycock. 48 teams. It's a world game. We're seeing players from every corner of the globe now playing in leagues around the world. This gives a chance for minor countries and islands in some cases, which we'll get into in a minute, having a chance to be on the world stage. So it's wonderful. I don't think I'd like to see it more than 48. I think it's the sweet spot. 12 groups of 48 beginning on the 11th of June, finishing on the 19th of July. And as you quite rightly said, 48 will come down to 24, 12, 8, 4, and so on, right till we get the finals.
Unbelievable. So the 48 means that our pool contains 4 teams. They play each other, I take it.
Once. All play. So 4 teams play 3 games.
Yes.
Yes.
So you get 3 games. You go to the World Cup. You're playing 3 games as a minimum.
In your qualifying group.
And so in those areas, a draw is a draw is a draw.
Regulation time's 90 minutes. We've all, I think, sampled the game from the experts right through to the people who are just casual watchers of games. The referee will decide if there's been injuries. He'll stop his watch. He'll tell his 4th official. They put up the famous board. So 90 minutes of regulation time, and there might be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever. That is the regulation time that's been deemed. If it's a draw in the qualifying groups, the draw stands as it is.
So you're trying to get through. 1 and 2 are guaranteed to get through. Number 3, it depends on, they've got to be a highest finisher amongst all the other number 3s,
Correct.
I take it?
Yes.
So that means that wins are utopia, draws are second prize,
Acceptable.
losses you don't want.
Well, you'll try and avoid them. And the other thing too, we talk about the world game at times can be 0-0 draws, and people, the uninitiated might, how boring. They can be great games too. But strategically, let's take the Socceroos.
Yep.
I would imagine, and we'll start our tips and everything as we get further into Pitch Perfect in the coming days. But Australia to take on Turkey, who'd be the favourite, and get a draw would be extremely credible result. You're trying to avoid goals against, and you're trying to get goals for in terms of your goal difference that will separate second or third. It's not out of the ordinary that a couple of teams could finish on the same amount of points, but goals scored or goals against could be the difference between you going to the next phase and not.
Yep. So you mentioned the Socceroos. You mentioned a draw against Turkey would be great. What's your expectation for the Socceroos in this tournament? I mean, over the years, we've heard of Socceroo teams where I would certainly know the names of 6 or 7. They have quite high profiles. This time round, I think the person in my eyes that's got the highest profile is probably the coach, because he coached Perth Glory and still has a son playing for Perth Glory. So Tony Popovich, I've met Tony Popovich, so I know him.
Yes.
The team itself, dare I say it, if I was sitting in a coffee shop, other than if they had a tracksuit on, I'd have no idea.
No, and you're a lot of people would concur with that. I can cast my mind back to November 2005. Famous night, John Aloisi scored in a penalty shootout, second leg against Uruguay. The country erupted, and away we went. That's it. You've got it. Yep. I could name that team now, from Mark Schwarzer in goal right through to Harry Kuehl on the left-hand side of the forward line, and all bar maybe 1 or 2 are playing in the highest leagues in Europe, mainly in the English Premier League. We were blessed with talent, and the expectations are high. Australia's qualified again with what we'd probably say, with the greatest due respect, a bunch of journeymen. But in Popovich, master coach, he won the Asian Championship with Western Sydney Wanderers as well. He has played the game at Crystal Palace in England at the highest level and represented his country. He's a master tactician, and make no mistake about it, Peter, he will have Australia highly organised, highly drilled. One of the great advantages, I believe, Australia will be taking very lightly by a lot of nations. They'll be written off. It's Australia. Who? Playing in the A-League, playing in lower tier in England or in Belgium, but they will be highly organised. My expectations would be that they could finish second, but even a good third place. I'd like to think they're good enough and they're well organised enough to at least get through the first phase. It won't be easy. You can imagine the pressure on the host nation, United States, and the fan base behind them. Paraguay, good side, but beatable. Turkey, exceptional side. And as I say, beat them. Wow. But drawing would be a very, very good result in my eyes.
Okay. Well, that's food for thought, and it's certainly a dose of optimism. Needless to say, I have said that I don't really know the Socceroos and the people that make up the team, but I know, just like the majority of you guys out there, those of you that are too, shy to ask the questions, that we will bit by bit start to know these players because the media will get on board. I mean, it's a bit sad, actually. We're, under 30 days to the World Cup. You flick through our local newspaper, and the only news on the FIFA World Cup is that Shakira and someone else, I forget who it is likely to do the opening ceremony, as opposed to how their prep is actually going. But anyway, that's an aside. That's why Pitch Perfect's here. That's why we're doing Pitch Perfect, to keep you, and more importantly me, up to date with what I'm going to be watching throughout June, July, in this great once every 4-year tournament.
And you make a great point. And the bandwagon will be big because watch the media, let's jump on it. But I have to give a shout out to one of our media partners, SBS.
Yes.
They are a wonderful broadcaster, free to air, which is wonderful, both on the main platform and on Viceland, their digital side of things. They will cover, and I've been doing it since the great Les Murray, the late Les Murray, and Johnny Warren all those years ago. I remember 1990, we've talked about previous World Cups. It's been held, obviously, in Italy, Northern Hemisphere, the 8 hours games, 2, 3 in the morning. I was doing the planning and prepping then. The cup of tea might have been the odd jacks, I must say, but I was a young tearaway, mature now. But thank you to SBS. Did a great job then, and subsequently through every World Cup, especially when Australia's qualified, which is wonderful. They will be there for every minute of every game.
Yeah, they are. They're doing the Giro d'Italia for every kilometre or every pedal of every kilometre. And then they obviously seamlessly, I imagine, go from the Giro d'Italia to the World Game. All right, of the 48 countries, who are surprise packages, or who could be surprise packages in your eyes?
In looking at World Cup 2026, Peter, and as the teams started to qualify, one of the things that always amuses me, but it seems to happen time after time, there's a snobbery when it comes to the World Game with certain countries. Now, I'm talking England, I'm talking Spain, I'm talking France, very well, Brazil even to an extent, and Argentina, world powers who the record books have shown, both domestic leagues and on the world stage, have done very well. In the last 20 years, there's been an explosion from especially the African continent, making up a lot of countries who will be represented at World Cup 2026. Great players playing week to week in France, in Italy, in Spain, in Germany, and of course in England. And I feel while the individuals will come to the fore and there'll be heroes and villains right throughout World Cup 2026, we will see countries that, by gosh, I didn't expect country X to do well. But when you break down their teams, 7, 8, 9 of their squad are plying their trade in the top leagues. So what I'm expecting, of course, the established nations will probably qualify for the next phase, and it'll be big news if they don't. But watch out for the lesser nations that probably have never got to World Cup quarterfinals. Some have really struggled to get out of their groups. The world football players now make up from every corner of the globe, and they will be representing their country proudly at this World Cup. And I think there's going to be a few surprise nations that's going to make the world sit up and take notice.
Give us a minnow or two. What's a country? Well, I know when I quickly scanned the 48, I saw countries there I didn't know were countries.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Now, I'm looking through my groups here. Mexico are in Group A, established country. Watch out for the Korean Republic. Very skillful, have hosted a World Cup with Japan, but they are more than capable of causing surprises against the main nations. I then peruse down. Now, Brazil are in a group with Morocco, Scotland and Haiti. They will do very well, Brazil. Ancelotti is the coach, the Italian master. He's got wonderful players who don't always play as a team, but Ancelotti's got that magic touch, great man management, can massage the egos. So Brazil is an established country that will do well. I've talked Group D, USA, Australia, Paraguay and Turkey. As biased as I'll sound, I think Australia can cause a surprise or two. As I look down, Curacao are in there. Now, am I expecting anything from Curacao? No, they'll have a wonderful time. Brand new nation with the oldest coach, Dick Advocat, the Dutchman, in charge, and they'll be there to celebrate. Are we expecting any miracles? Probably not. Uruguay will do very well. Saudi Arabia will do very well. But here's it now, case in point. France, Senegal, Norway and Iraq are in Group I. Senegal is a team that will not be in many people's, apart from the people in Senegal, on many people's tips to go far. Senegal have got a team where their players, a large group of their players, are, what I was discussing earlier with you, playing at the top leagues in Europe. So they will cause a surprise or two. There's no doubt about it. Portugal, Cristiano Ronaldo, coming to the twilight of his career, expected to do well, but they're in groups with Uzbekistan and the DR Congo. Again, more than capable of holding these successful, well-established nations to a draw, which in the eyes of some of the established nations is a disaster, but it won't be a surprise to me at all. So it's littered with the established nations playing well, but the nations that have got the players finally playing in the top leagues, which they haven't enjoyed in previous World Cups, certainly of 24 years ago, 2026, it's a different landscape.
Okay, well, I know, sadly, Italy are not in the World Cup, but if you ever did follow Italy in the World Cup, it only takes an errant red card to change a result in the World Game. So you can never really pick it.
You can't. And the other technology that's around,
yes,
and we're seeing it, the VAR.
They don't do that, though, do they?
Oh, you're doing it quite well. They'll, some of the more flamboyant referees will. Goes upstairs. VAR will play a part in this World Cup. It's here to stay. One of the great bits of technology, which finally hit football, is even in the 1966 World Cup, where certainly didn't have the technology, when a ball can hit the crossbar, bounce down and bounce out, did it cross the line, did it not? A defender comes sliding in, was the ball over the line? The technology now is on a wristwatch. The referee knows within 2 seconds whether the ball's over or not. He makes it, he points to the watch and either awards a goal or a goal kick, as the case may be. Wonderful technology, common sense. VAR, for myself and a lot of other purists, we would prefer, but it's too late, for the referees, human error, make the mistake, make the call, and it might go against you because it's too easy now that they're referring to VAR ongoing throughout the games. So 90 minutes plus regulation is now becoming 90 plus 12, 13, 14 minutes, because if there's 2 or 3 instances with VAR during a game, it can take sometimes 2 or 3 minutes for the referee to listen to upstairs, go across to a TV monitor, do his hand signals, and make the judgment call that he sees after watching it 2 or 3 times.
So, a lot of knowledge coming out here in Pitch Perfect, and one of the beauties of having Pitch Perfect on YouTube is that you can comment and or ask questions. So go to Podcast Capital, search that first of all. Then you'll find the podcast called Pitch Perfect. Any of the episodes, this is obviously episode 1, put in a comment, ask a question, because honestly, our plan, we're doing this for you, our plan is to ask those questions, answer those questions, and more importantly, if we don't know it, or certainly if Declan doesn't know it, we're even going to be getting other experts into the show throughout the course of the World Cup. Now, you mentioned 1966. I had done some research on 1966, and I keep thinking, and I can't do a show on the World Cup being in America without mentioning the one himself, the Don, the Donald. He'll stick his nose somewhere into the World Cup. I will guarantee it. Now, in 1966, the mascot was World Cup Willie.
Right. You have done your research.
There was a reason for it. Willie allegedly or apparently was a lion, and obviously it was in the UK, and lions are symbolic. I'm trying to think who Donald might go for. World Cup Jeffrey?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
No.
World Cup Ferret?
I hear where you're going. I see where you're going. I'm worried where you're going, but keep going.
I think you'll just go with World Cup Don. I think somewhere an inflated Don, an inflatable Don, is going to appear. Whether he's been put there by Don himself or whether it's people floating him as a balloon, the Don is going to have a pall over the 2026 World Cup.
I don't think there's any doubt. Peter, you asked me earlier for any tips. I'm talking about nations that might not have been successful in previous years, but one thing I think we can predict with confidence, the Don will be there at the start. I'm sure at the end, when the two teams have played perhaps overtime, there may even be a penalty shootout, the Don will be front and centre. What the Don's got to remember, there's a country north of the United States called Canada. They're joint holders. And a country south of the border where he's obviously sending people back to, Mexico. So it's not all about the United States, but he will be front and centre. But on a serious note, in 1994, one of the things that a lot of skeptics had, Peter, was America, razzmatazz, all sorts of... They put on a wonderful World Cup. It's warm, it's hot, but great cities. Altitude in Mexico has to be catered for. Canada's probably a little bit more sedate climate-wise. West Coast, East Coast, time differences and so forth. But the Americans will and always do put on a wonderful production. And I'm expecting that this World Cup will surpass even previous World Cups with production values.
Of the 48 teams, am I right in saying that Iraq is one of the 48 teams?
You are right in saying Iran.
Sorry, Iran, yes.
Which is quite poignant in what we've all been going through. No matter where you're watching Pitch Perfect, the world is a village, and we all know what's happening in that part of the world. But what a great story. And while we might have a laugh and a joke about politics, it will cross over occasionally with sport, but that symbolises for me the World Cup. A war-torn country, players, families affected by it, even though some don't obviously play in Iran, their families are there, they represent the country proudly, and they've qualified. Graham Arnold, the coach, wonderful story, who's a Socceroo, born in Scotland, grew up in Australia, took over the thankless position. He took it on. He's done a wonderful job with a bunch of players, interpreters in the middle, and got them through. And they have earned their spot in 2026. They're in Group G, Peter, alongside Belgium, Egypt, and our friends across the ditch, New Zealand. And you know what? They're half a chance to qualify.
Half a chance, that's for sure. That could be interesting if they get into some of the premier final games. All right, we're just about wrapped up, but there's an important question to ask. We know it's coming up, it's under 30 odd days, but players are currently playing for a whole range of things right here and now. We have the A-League going on in Australia where teams are vying for that wonderful trophy. It's an odd-shaped trophy,
It
the
is.
A-League trophy, but that's another story for another day. We have teams trying to prevent relegation. We've got teams trying to win entry into Europe. We've got teams trying to win EPL competitions and so on and so forth. Yet within 30 days, they've got to go from there to Vroom, representing their countries. How will they? How do they? How does Popovic plug into the Aussie players that are gainfully employed at the moment? How does Graham Arnold do it? What actually happens between now and that first kickoff for each of these teams?
Almost every manager to a T in the World Cup of the 48 teams will have players still currently playing in their respective domestic leagues right around the globe. You make a great point. There's still the business end of the season in England and right throughout Europe, where a lot of the players congregate. They will have known this all the way through. They'll be keeping an eye, obviously, on form, on injuries, and everything else on the welfare. And what will happen with a lot of the players, it's due to start on the 11th of June. They've been planning and preparing, especially the teams that did qualify over 12 months ago. They'll know where they're based. Obviously, their group games have been set. The organisers keep the group games in the same region, so you're not crisscrossing the continent. They will have their hotels, they will have their training, they'll have their dietary needs. Some will bring in their own foods, dietitians, everything. Nothing will be left to chance at all. Some of the main teams will arrive in the United States around 10 to 12 days before the start of their group game. That will have allowed a very short break from finishing the season to World Cup 2026. I can assure you, every player will say, so this is the pinnacle of my career and its success. And what will happen, and a lot of clubs do get affected by it, but they make allowances for it. When the World Cup has finished in July, when a lot of the clubs are going back to pre-season, they will get the extra 2 or 3 weeks off. So it's just part and parcel of the game and the success of qualifying for the World Cup. This is the small hiccup you've got to have. I don't think anyone minds every 4 years.
That's why Declan Kelly is the expert here on Pitch Perfect. We hope you've enjoyed our very first show of Pitch Perfect. Some of you have been watching it on YouTube, and we thank you for tuning in. And please, you can help us out a lot by sharing it with your friends, liking it, but even more importantly, engage with us. Give us your comments, give us the questions, give us the areas you'd like us to cover. Our plan is to host this at least weekly, but as things crop up, even if it be Declan and I have got to come down in the middle of the night after something that's happened that we just have to talk about, even if we're wearing pajamas, that's exactly what we're going to do. Nothing's going to get in the road of Pitch Perfect. Some of you are lucky enough to be hearing this through our radio partners, and rather than see our pretty faces, you're hearing us. But make sure you too go to YouTube, Podcast Capital, subscribe to Podcast Capital, hunt down on the podcast tab, Pitch Perfect. You too can participate by liking, sharing, or commenting. That's Pitch Perfect number 1. See you soon for Pitch Perfect number 2.